How's everybody doing? Good? Come on, how's everybody doing? Good? Oh, look at all these beautiful people. Did everybody eat breakfast? Cool. Everybody get their coffee? Juice? Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. A huge thank you to Devops Days Rockies. This is actually my first Devops Days that I've not able to speak at, but was invited to speak at. So I'm super stoked. So if you get to see anybody that is a volunteer or an organizer or anybody that's making this happen, please give them praise, tip your hat, give them a dap, shake their hand. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have these events. And also too, if you could, thank your sponsors. If it wasn't for sponsors, we wouldn't have developer community. Developer community means a lot to me, and I'll kind of go into that here in a couple different slides. But thank your sponsors. I know we all like to take functional swag off their tables and not really give them the time of day, but they're here just like we're here, right? And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the money to do these things. We wouldn't be able to come together as a community and be able to learn and grow and vibe with each other. So if you get a chance, please, 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 thank your sponsors. I would appreciate it. If you're on social media, whether that's Twitter, Mastodon, if you are a invitee to Blue Sky, which is like the new latest and greatest, everybody's flocking to it, whether it works, I don't know. It might be another Mastodon. But these are the official hashtags for the event. Devops Days, or Devops Days and Devops Days rocks. So if you're tweeting or taking pictures or doing any of that cool stuff, if you throw that on there, it's a good way for not only for the speakers to track the engagement, but also the organizers and volunteers and see where they're kind of at in that kind of space. Here's another one. I was just talking about developer community. If you could throw this hashtag on there as well, I would really appreciate it. I love developer community. Y'all are my lifeblood. Like, I'm here for you. I'm not here just to stand up here and just blow smoke, right? I want us to learn from each other. I want to help. If I see some light bulbs go off, great. Some of the stuff I might be talking about in here, you might not even care about. But if I talk to you as a person and you see some of the stuff that I'm really into, you might dig that and you might pull me aside and be like, yo, I want to talk about tattoos with you. Okay, that's cool. We can do that. But that's part of developer community. You know what I mean? And that kind of goes back to the volunteers and the organizers and the sponsors. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this. We went through a horrible time a couple years ago and everything stopped. I actually lived in Denver for a year. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I moved to Denver for a year and I got stuck in COVID pandemic shutdown like the last 6 months before I moved back to Detroit. And that sucked. Like, we had virtual developer community. Yes, it's developer community, but we all know virtual events are not that great because you're speaking into a camera and that's all you have. You can't vibe with the audience. You can't crack a joke and know if anybody's laughing, right? I need people. I need all of you. So I really appreciate all of you coming today, gonna be here tomorrow. And yeah, I love developer community, so thank you. My name's Chris. I'm a developer advocate at Split Software. Split Software is a feature management and experimentation platform. So we have products for A/B testing, feature flag, CI/CD, canary release. You can catch me on Twitter at Salt and Burnham. Where's it at? It's not gonna work. Oh, there it goes. This is the best investment ever. Salt and Burnham. If you are a Supernatural fan, you will understand that reference. How many people like Supernatural? Raise your hand. Yo, come on now. All right, how many like Buffy? Raise your hand. There we go, a little bit more. This is a safe space, y'all. It's like, it's fine. We're all nerds in here. Okay, Charmed. Who likes Charmed? Okay, new Charmed or old Charmed? Old Charmed. Okay. All right, this one gets everybody. Stranger Things. See, there's where the hands are. That's where the hands are. Okay, so has everybody seen the last season? Yeah? No? All right, I don't want to do any spoilers, so I'll keep it quiet. So yeah, you can catch me on Twitter, Salt and Burnham, from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. Birthday is also 313, so that has a different meaning to me, being from Detroit and having the same birthday. A little bit about me. I hold accolades in these things, different acronyms like ABC and MVP and whatever the case may be. I'm an international speaker. I love spooky stuff and horror movies and that whole entire genre, so if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. I'm a tattoo collector, if you couldn't tell. And I also believe in UFOs, and I believe in Bigfoot, and I also believe in ghosts. So if you want to talk about any of that, we can have that conversation. Shameless plug, also stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/split_software. So if you want to pop in and vibe, hang out. If you want to be on stream, that's cool. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's very guest focused when I have guests on. So definitely hit me up, DM me, slide in there, and or today, tomorrow, let me know, and we can talk about that. Demystifying the dreaded A/B test. I know what you're thinking. It's really not that scary, especially how I'm going to break this piece down. This talk is not going to be overly technical. There's going to be a little bit of code in it, one little demo that you can peep and check it out, but it's not going to be too scary. Does anybody know who this guy is? There you go, all right. My horror fans out here, I love it. It's not that scary. I used to work at a prior environment where we were using A/B testing and feature flags, but it was very much a WYSIWYG-based platform. It wasn't a code-based platform. So to me, I just hop in, almost like Dreamweaver. Anybody remember Dreamweaver days? I started on Notepad on a Windows 95 machine, so I'm old-ish in web years. But it's a WYSIWYG type of editor that I was using prior, and so I was like, oh sweet, I'm working at a company that has a product like this. Well, it's not like that. It's very much code-based with SDKs, but it's not that scary. And my bread and butter is web accessibility. I talk around the world on web accessibility. I talk about CSS and A/B testing and feature flags. So what I'm going to show today is A/B testing using CSS. So if you, in a previous life, were a CSS developer, how many front-end devs are in here? Even the dev, okay, sweet, that's cool, that's awesome. If you're very, very comfortable with vanilla CSS, or even if you use Sass or SCSS, whatever the case may be, you can use feature flags and CSS and be able to do those things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So what is A/B testing? What is a split test? What does that mean? So A/B testing, this is from Talia Nassi. A/B testing, otherwise known as split testing, is the process of testing two different versions of a web page product, or a web page or product feature against the original existing version. Okay, sweet, that's an A/B test, right? That's kind of the simplified version of it. So what does that actually look like? Well, you have your A version, right? This is just a standard form. I made this. Don't judge me on my design skills. I used to be able to design a lot of cool stuff in Photoshop. I kind of suck at design now. But it's like your standard login form, right? You have two inputs, you have a button, maybe you have a link to create the account if you don't already have one. Sweet, that is what we have, that is the baseline. That's what everybody sees today. This is B, this is the version B, right? Still your same thing. The only change is that that link is now a button on the side, right? And it should say create account, it doesn't, didn't have enough room, whatever. So A and B, that's what a A/B test is, right? That's what a split test is. It's just one version, and then you ship another version, depending on the user base. Well, why would you do that? Why do you need to do A/B testing? Why is that imperative to your product? Now, if you're a freelancer, let's say, and you're just doing small shops, I used to do a lot of tattoo shops back in the day, so I'd get my work for free and I would trade work. Chances are, if you're doing a tattoo shop's website, you're not going to need A/B testing, right? Not everybody in the world is going to see that site. Well, maybe not everybody in the world is going to see it, but it's not something that you have to do. Bigger company, enterprise company, you're going to want to do these things. And these are some answers as to why you do A/B testing. An awesome user experience. It is your job as anybody, I don't care who you are, from designer to VP within your organization, and if you're the one that's writing and or shipping the code, it is your job to ship an amazing, accessible user experience. No questions asked. We are here to change lives. A lot of people don't really understand that fully. And when I bring it up to people, they're like, oh, dude, you're right. Like, we're changing lives with the stuff that we're doing. We are trying to make the world a better place, right? That's what we're doing. So having an amazing user experience that's also accessible. Increasing revenue, there's always going to be a bottom line. That's just the way it is, right? Especially if it's an e-com or any type of software as a service platform, you're offering up something. Increasing revenue, finding those ways to increase that revenue is one of the reasons why you would use an A/B testing platform. Data correlation for better business decisions. Figuring out who your users are, right? Figuring out who your users were and where they're going to be. Getting all that information together and then being able to better formulate tests further down the line. And then fine-grained control of code exposure. This is a really cool one. Has everybody heard of testing in production? You can do that with A/B testing and feature flags. It's really cool. Like, it blew my mind when I came over to Split, and I was like, what, you can actually do this? This would have saved me headaches at other companies. Because you can ship stuff into production, hide it behind a feature flag, give that information to your QA to test in production, and nobody else will see those new features except your QA. So you can test in production. Or your product management team, whatever the case may be. You can segment out those users based on user ID or email. It's really, really cool stuff. And then once your QA gives the thumbs up, flick the switch, boom. It's already there, it's out in the world. If you need to roll back, it's easy. Just roll it back. And with Split's product, you can do that internally within their web console, the UI editor. But that's cool. Like being able to control that on the fly, that's super, super huge. I love that. So how do you do it? That's a great question. How do you start getting into A/B testing? How do you get into feature flags? Well, you set up an experiment. Well, how do you set up an experiment? Well, like this guy here, this is how you do it. But you don't do it like that. That's not an experiment. That's what we call a moron. You do not, okay, here's a funny one for you. Did you ever test 9-volt batteries as a kid on your tongue? Yeah, you still do that? You're like, yeah, I do that. No, I did it once and never did it again. And I'm a paintball player, so like the electronics I use, some of them use 9 volts, some of them use AA's, but you're not gonna catch me like on the field like, oh, jeez. That's not fun. First things first, you have to gather the data. You have to get the data around your users, who your users are, what they're doing. Get that baseline before the experiment, right? You wanna know what your persona is. Where are most of your users coming from? What is the demographic of your users, right? What is your competition doing that can help foster your decision? What are other companies doing that is using your product, your competitor's product, to better formulate those decisions when you gather that data? So you want to make sure that you get your baseline first. Cool, we have a baseline, we're gathering data, we have all these cool things. Now what do we do? Well, you gotta work with science a little bit. Does anybody remember the scientific method? Yeah, a little bit. So when I was putting this talk together, apparently there's like 7 or 8 steps to it now. I remember 5 in school when I was a kid. I only remember like 2 of them. But then like some websites say there's 6. Neil deGrasse Tyson might say there's none because he doesn't believe in science. Just joking. He doesn't believe in UFOs, but he believes in science. He's a good guy. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson. You have to use the scientific method. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to science this. We're going to have to kind of go back and remember how the scientific method works, right? And the first step in that is what? A hypothesis. Or ask a question. You need to have a question. You need to formulate a question first to take the rest of the steps in order to get to that final goal. Do your research. It's getting that baseline, right? Correlating that data, figuring out those users, figuring out your users. Constructing your hypothesis. Everybody remembers that one. Constructing a hypothesis. Making a statement that may or may not be true based on the results of the experiment. Then you experiment, so you want to test that hypothesis, see if it's true, and then you draw your conclusion. These are the 5 steps that I remember as a kid, but now there's a couple more that are in here, and I don't know what they actually are. These are the only ones I care about. The only 2 that really matter out of these 5 specifically are constructing the hypothesis and then doing the experiment. Get that hypothesis first, see if it works, set that experiment up, and then you'll know whether your hypothesis was true or not, right? If we ship this new button, our retention will increase by 20%. Maybe it's 21%. Maybe it's 19%, right? You don't know. You're just making a statement that may or may not be true based on the data. What's your target? Is your target a higher percentage? Is your target a lower percentage? What's your true north? True north is something you're never going to hit, but at least you want to get a target and be able to try to get to that and keep increasing. If we ship this new button, our retention will increase by 20%. Okay, sweet, we have the hypothesis, and now it's time to experiment. We have A and we have B version. So the A version is what we call the control, which could also be called the default, because if somebody doesn't have a certain connection turned on or whatever, or something's not working, it'll default to the control. It's just what everybody sees. So you have your control and you have your treatment. So your treatment is the version that you're shipping. And that can be stuff that's also in the back end. It could be like a database thing. It could be for performance. In this case, we're talking about strictly UI. Strictly UI components, and that's it. And this is just with CSS. So we have the control, then we have the treatment. Okay, sweet. So we have the features. Awesome. We have A that everybody's seeing right now. We want to ship B, and we want to ship B to certain people. So how do we do that? We do it with feature flags. So you can turn these on or off. You might have heard them as feature toggles, right? They're just feature flags. They're just on or off. Well, how do you do that? Well, you segment your users. Well, what does that mean? You split them. And this is a painless split. I don't like using the term easy or basic, because what's easy and basic to you might not be easy and basic to somebody else. You split the user. So let's say 50% of the user base, or everybody in the whole world, will see the control. And then if somebody else, 50% of the other user base, and it's all random, might see version B, the treatment. Right, so you can gauge, and in the back end, you can gauge the different clicks, you can see different metrics, you can see how many people they saw this, how many people saw this, what the retention was for this, what the retention was for this, and you can base that experiment off of all that data on what you're going to ship. So then you would cut one, ship the other. It's pretty cool. Another way you can do this too, with Split's product, you can like break this down to locale, which is cool. So you can say like, I don't think you could use like Jefferson Park, but that's where I used to live, in Jefferson Park. You could say, I want 10,000 users that live in Denver to get the treatment. Like you can do that. Like that's powerful. To be able to break it down to like the locale is real powerful. And you can ship stuff like this with different attributes in the back end. You can pass user IDs, etc., to figure out your split. But if you're just looking at a regular, painless, default type of split, a 50-50 right down the middle, that just goes out. That's how you would do this. You're going to flex that UI muscle. You're going to be like water. This whole talk is about demystifying the dreaded A/B test, using CSS with some JavaScript, but it's mostly CSS based, because the only thing that you're really modifying is the CSS. You're using the JavaScript. Well, in this demo is the vanilla.js SDK that we offer at Split. You just pull that in. You don't really have to do a whole lot of modification, and mostly everything else is just going to be UI based. It's going to be HTML, CSS, and you hide and show features that way. You can be a CSS developer and use feature flags. That was a big concern of mine, because that's what I grew up doing. I've been a CS developer. I've been a front-end developer for 27 years, developer advocate unofficially, officially for 10, but I grew my career on being really good at CSS and being really good at web accessibility and being really good at writing clean semantic markup. Like, I am not a JavaScript developer by any means. I have friends that are. Like, they can do amazing stuff with JavaScript. JavaScript scares the hell out of me. But I love my CSS. And if you're a CSS developer at heart, you can still do this. And when I talk about CSS, I'm talking about like CSS. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. Does anybody follow me on Twitter or have? No? Cool. Hopefully that changes after this. But yeah, real, legit, vanilla CSS, possibly with Sass. This is the code that makes it work. Just a little bit of JavaScript. This comes directly from the SDK in the web console for Split. Now we have SDKs for front end, back end, and mobile. This is just a vanilla JavaScript one, right? Let the treatment, you get the treatment name. So the really cool thing about the treatment name up here is you don't have to hard code that in. In the back end, when you're setting up your split and your treatment and all that stuff, you name that in the back end, and that automatically gets populated for you just to copy and paste and put it into your code. There's also some API keys you can use that are generated specifically for your environment that you're in. Those can be visible as far as I know. That's not going to like really hurt anything. Set up a couple variables, some if statements. So if the treatment is on, show or hide this. Else, if it's off, show or hide this. And then if it does fail, you're going to get the default treatment, which would be the control, just the OG version that everybody sees. So this is it. Modified a little bit of JS, a couple for loops, and you're good to go. I have a little demo And if you want to scan this, it's really, the link doesn't go anywhere, but you can scan it. And if you just keep refreshing, you're going to see that link change color and maybe font size. That's all based on feature flags, which is really cool. And I can change that right here, deploy it to Netlify, and it'll automatically just show up on your phone, and I could keep changing it. So it's really cool that you can have that kind of power, right? Version A, version B. Let me see if I can show a little bit of this. I wonder how much I'm on time. Probably got like 5 minutes. Let me see here. Let me come over here. New window. Come on, Wi-Fi. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Cool. Swing this over here. Bump that up. All right, so this is the environment that it's in. You can see your different environments in your workspaces. So I think I am in client team. And then in here, you can see your different work. These are the different experiments that I have running, the different splits. So you have a rollout board, you have your target. These are the different splits right here. CSS demo. You can change it. You can get rid of it if you wanted to just roll everything back and stop the feature flags because the test is over with, the experiment is over with. You can kill it. But yeah, down here, treatment on, treatment off. And I just have it set to 50-50. That's it. And anybody that's going to see that experiment is going to get 50% here of the A or 50% of the B. I don't think we can see it in here, but there's 3 dots over here to the side. Right over here, and there's an area for syntax. And you can choose the language you're in. So if you are in mobile and you need an Android SDK, you click that. It's going to be pre-populated with your treatment name, your API key, copy and paste the code, put it in. If you are a .NET developer, you just choose C#.NET from the SDK list, pre-populates it, boom, you're good. React, Angular, whatever the case may be, Python Go, you're good to go. You can grab all of that code from there and put it into yours. So I'll get out of here. It's not that bad. This is a happy cry. I mean, it looks like a sad cry, but it's really a happy cry. Because we're happy, Mr. Price is happy. We can do feature flags with CSS. The way to get into it, it's really not that bad, if you really think about it. It can be a little scary once you start looking at things, but at the end of the day, that's not too shabby. Here's some resources if anybody wants those. It's at a bit.ly, so bit.ly/CSS-feature-flags. If anybody wants to take a picture of that, I'll leave it up for like 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. That's me. That's my time. Thank you so much.
All right, that was awesome. Any questions for Chris out here?
Yeah.
Oh, Bo doesn't have a microphone, right? I'll run over.
If you want, anybody wants to ask questions too, you can ask me at the end. Like
gotta avoid those.
So let's say that I'm serving features using feature flags, and I might be a bad developer, and I might be sending out something that's not working for the customers quite often. So how do you determine that when I serve feature A versus feature B, that the users are picked randomly when I set that percentage, but not the same users are getting served both the times and then they get pissed off?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ask me after. Sound good? Cool.
That sounds like a great open space.
Yeah.